Alright guys, today is going to be a fun day. I've got a relatively quick project that I'm working on. Let me show you. I'm going to be building a all-metal workbench. Now what I have here is a 4x8 sheet of 10 gauge steel. I will be using this entire size for the tabletop. Basically I'll build it upside down, flip it over, and then it will live on the other side of my truck over there. Now back when I was in Phoenix, I had a similar table that I built. The difference was that I used 16 gauge steel and it was a little bit on the flimsy side, so I ended up having to put some wood underneath it. I didn't like the design. I wanted to use thicker steel this time, and that's why I picked this 10 gauge steel. Now what I need to do first is cut the legs and the side supports. I will be making 6 cuts at 2 feet 7 inches, 2 cuts at 7 feet 8 inches, and then 4 cuts at 3 feet 8 inches. And this is basically what it's going to look like. I'll have a total of 6 legs and then 2 supports across there. I will make a few modifications to this table later in order to mount my grinder and my buffing wheel to it, but for right now I just need the table. So I will be using a total of 45 feet and 6 inches of steel just to build this. And then I'll take whatever's left from the 20-foot stick, which will be around 15 feet, and then I will make a bunch of supports that I'll then triangulate all of these legs with. So let's get cutting. Alright, now I'm not sure if any of you guys have noticed, but I've already made my first mistake. I have all 6 of my legs cut right here, but in my diagram, I have all 4 of the outside legs right up against the steel, just like this, and then the 2 inside legs are on top of the support. So these 2 have to be 2 inches shorter than the other 4. So what I did was lined up all 6 of these because they're all going to be just a little bit off, and as I'm looking down the edge, I realized the first 4 are all really close. These 2 on the end are maybe a little less than a 1/16 of an inch shorter, so I'm going to go ahead and cut these 2 inches in. I will be capping the ends and then putting on adjuster nuts, so it will have a little bit of adjustment just for the natural unevenness of my concrete floor, which is quite frankly pretty terrible. So let me get these 2 cut 2 inches shorter, and then I will be able to hopefully start tacking everything up. Actually, before I tack it, I will probably go ahead and cut 12 of my 45-degree little supports right here like that. I don't know exactly the size that I'm going to go with. Usually when I'm doing this, I'll take whatever is like my smaller scrap pieces. You see I've got this one here and these 2, so I take the shorter one and then I'll end up cutting this at 45, and then I'll use this as my base to cut the other 11. I don't know if that's exactly what I'll go with because it might end up being a little bit too short. So just kind of play it by ear. This is a little on the willy-nilly side. Alright guys, I wanted to show you the table up close here. I finished all the welds from the table to the frame, but I have not yet finished the welds on these supports. Now on a previous table, I used 16 gauge steel for the legs, and when I welded the supports right here and here, it overheated the steel a little bit and the legs pulled in. It really bothered me. Don't want that to happen again on this one, so I went with 083 thicker steel. And then when I weld these supports, I'll weld the outsides on all of them first, and then I'll weld the insides, and then I'll go from the inside out to hopefully dissipate the heat a little bit better. Once I do that, I'm going to be making the leg adjusters. For the leg adjusters, I've got 6-inch flat strap here that I will cut into 6 separate pieces and then drill out the centers. I will weld these old grade 8 and grade 5 nuts and bolts that I had lying around. I'll weld the nuts on the inside, and then that way I can use the bolts as the adjusters. So let's get this all finished. Alright guys, the welding is all done. It looks great. The next step is going to be cleaning up the threads on these bolts with this die, and then using this tap to clean out the threads on the nuts. Anytime you weld them, they're going to get a little bit gummy, so this step just makes it a little bit easier to use these adjusters in the future. It is 310 pounds.
We did it!
Alright, so here's how the table turned out. Now would normally be the time that I paint this or send it off for powder coating, but I'm not actually quite done with this table yet. I'm calling this the Mark 1 iteration of this table. Eventually, I want to do a swing arm that pops out from the bottom that has my grinder, and then one that pops out here for my buffing wheel. And then on the end, I would like to have both my metal shrinker and my metal stretcher pop out. That way I can work with larger pieces of metal without having to have the tools take up a whole bunch of room. And since I'm going to be mounting those to it later, I really didn't want to have to grind down on the paint or the powder coating to weld the tabs on. So I'm going to leave it raw like this, and then once I make all those modifications, I do plan on painting the bottom to protect it from rusting, but I don't want to paint the top. I didn't like the idea of having paint or powder coating flaking off of here at any point. I would like to polish this up and then use some type of a chemical to keep it nice and rust free. Most of the old timers that I talk to recommend using Gibbs penetrating oil, so that was my plan, but I've never actually used that on a polished surface in order to keep it from rusting. So if any of you have any better ideas in the comments below, I would love it if you gave me your opinion. So that's going to be it. Hopefully you guys enjoyed my quick little day-long project, and we'll follow along with the future iterations of this table because it will come out pretty cool. Take care.
Thanks for watching, everybody. Bye-bye.